Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you another video. All right, I know I look crazy, but I just woke up in the morning, got through having good conversation, but unnecessary conversations once again with T-Mobile, trying to keep this thing on so I can keep talking to you guys. So let's get basketball on our minds. Now, I've listened to everybody as I always do. And the latest chatter right now is a whole lot of nothing. It's still early in the morning, 7 o'clock Pacific time. So nothing's happening on the West Coast, luckily enough, while I was going through all that. But what I did see was a quote from Kevin Durant. And essentially what he was saying in the quote, paraphrasing as I always do, ask around. For those who don't know what I'm about, ask around. Those who are in the gym with me know what I'm about. And if you don't, just ask around. Here's the deal with KD. And if you follow me, this isn't a new sentiment. KD is in a rare space historically because where he's at in his career, first of all, it's still plenty of basketball to play. So he's still writing his story. And if he gets in the right situation, just like Steph Curry, he can elevate himself from this point. As to where Steph Curry with 3 wings, we looked at as a hell of a game-changing greatest shooter of all time. Steph Curry with 4 rings, he's a top 10 player to ever play this game. Like immediately something changed when he won that series. I think that's where KD went, but in the other direction. Once he lost that Boston series, it left the latest taste in our mouths about that player as if for whatever reason, he ain't the God-level talent that we've seen for the last decade. Now, is it okay to say Father Time may have come to see him? Yeah, sure, it's okay to say that. I think once you get to a certain point in your 30s, that is what it is. But I think a lot of what went wrong with that situation was the fact that he was the only real offensive scorer that could draw any attention. Now, if he would have had that problem in Golden State, I don't think he would have looked that much different. If he would have had that problem in OKC, I think he would have looked like that too. So, yeah, would he have made a couple more shots? Defense would have been a little better. Maybe he could have had some historic, heroic performances with that type of defense on him. If you were like, say, 7 years younger, sure, he could have probably went for a 60 and maybe won some of them games that they lost. But they wouldn't have won the series. You put old KD in young KD in that net situation, he's probably still losing the series just the same. So what I understand is the player himself is still the player himself. You just got to get him in a situation just like everybody else where he fits, and then boom, you get the KD experience. So I ain't lost any faith in KD. I don't think his price tag should be lowered because of that particular situation necessarily. When you're that great, you're not necessarily affected by that in trade value, in my opinion. Not as much as maybe someone else. However, we've never seen a player like this get traded before, period. Not since probably Shaq or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of them type of situations. It just doesn't happen. And another thing about KD is historically, right now, because of where he's at and the losses that he's taken and the path that he's gone through the league, there are people who he's better than, much, much better than, who are going to be historically considered better than him. Some of those folks are still alive right now, and some of those folks have a lot to say about him right now. And y'all are great too, because they're a fleet of generational players and talented players that can't shine y'all shoes. When you talk, they must listen. Thing about it is, KD's not that guy. He's one of those guys that said he's like Wilt or Jerry West. He may not have won as much as y'all, but if y'all was on a court with him, you probably ain't beating him. And that's the thing about Kevin Durant. And the thing about Kevin Durant even more so is because of the style of his game and the way that he plays, he fits into more situations than a lot of guys. So a lot of these guys who are talking a lot about him, he would be starting over them in a lot of eras. They wouldn't get on the floor because he was on the team. And we're talking about great players who made the Hall of Fame and won a lot of championships in some cases. But because of what they accomplished in the league, they are considered his big homie. They're considered his better. And I don't think there's too many scenarios like that up and down the NBA. Not too many. You may look at Akeem Olajuwon and say that about a lot of guys. Like I said, Wilt Chamberlain is one of those guys where it's like, yeah, he was better and he could do more than them, but he didn't accomplish more. But KD's different. I look at KD as different because there's no era that he wouldn't have dominated based on his skill set. There's no basketball floor that he wouldn't have affected in a ridiculously impossible way because of his length. There's no position that he couldn't have played at a very high level because we've seen him play most of them at a very high level, including the center position where he was the last line of defense for a Golden State Warrior defense that won 2 NBA championships. And I know Draymond Green needs to be considered the last line of defense. They had 2 lines, and that's what it was. And I haven't forgotten how much of a defensive presence KD was for that Warrior team. I haven't forgotten that he was considered as good a scorer as T-Mac and Kobe and Iverson during the time when those guys were really, really balling out. He was considered as good, if not a better scorer than all of them at that time, during that particular time. And so it's one of those situations where it's like, there's really, in my mind, probably only about 9 or 10 guys, maybe 9 or 10 guys that are actually better than Kevin Durant in the game of basketball in the history of the sport. And I'm not actually sure I can definitively say those 9 guys are better than him. I don't think so. Like, not actually. That's the thing. See, Kevin Durant going to the 73-win Warrior team made them the greatest team of all time. Like, he literally made them that. They couldn't be beat because his piece made it that way, basically. Yeah, they had a 73-win team. They had won championship already, but we're talking about, like, trying to scheme against a basketball floor. In order to have beat that Golden State Warriors, you're probably going to need Giannis. You're going to need Victor. You're going to need Evan Mobley. Like, that's the type of talent that would actually need Scotty Barnes. That's the type of talent you need on the perimeter to have actually defended that team. There wasn't nothing alive that could even look at them funny. And the reason why that was is because of the greatness of Steph Curry and the greatness of Kevin Durant. And, of course, greatness of Klay Thompson, greatness of Draymond Green. But you know what it is. Those were the two. For anybody who wasn't around watching that series, watching that era, yeah, it was KD number 1, Steph number 2. That's how it worked. But even in that situation, it was like, this is Steph's team. Once again, KD in a situation where he's better than dudes, but still has to adhere to dudes for whatever set of reasons. So I don't know how Kevin views his own legacy in that regard. But the path that a player takes through the league is going to determine a lot of what they deal with. For example, you look at a path like Robert Horry's, the greatest path there is, 7 rings. He played an intricate part in every last one of those. But if he wouldn't have 7 rings, if he would have took a different path, if he would have taken a path that, say, Durant took or something, different role, different circumstances, probably not comparable, but you get the point. I believe the point still stands. They would have taken a different route that would have took him in situations that took him out of the control of what it is that he could contribute to a championship club. He needed other things to contribute to ultimately every single one of those 7 rings. Now, did he have a massive impact on those teams? Of course. Like, specifically the Laker teams. I didn't watch the Spurs teams much. I didn't watch the Houston teams much. But the Laker teams, he was hitting shots that if he didn't hit those shots, we don't get those rings. So it's not even about that. But it's about whether or not he's in a position to be able to hit those shots on those teams to win those rings. KD was playing with Westbrook for the first half of his career. As much as we love Russell Westbrook, we understand that was a very difficult situation. Now, KD could fit with anyone, but it's especially difficult when you're a hyper-efficient scoring basketball god and you're playing with somebody who takes 20 shots a game naturally and controls the ball 90% of the time, and as at his best when he had the ball in his hands. So it was a fit that never worked. It was 2 players that essentially should not have been slapped together in the first place. There was no way of knowing that, because when they picked up Russell Westbrook, it was a situation where you weren't quite sure what he was going to turn into, but what you didn't know, he was going to be that much of a high usage, inefficient player, as to which is taking so many shots out of Kevin Durant's hands. When you consider the fact that Kevin Durant was playing with such a high usage player that controlled the ball as much as he did, and you look at the shooting numbers and the scoring numbers he was putting up, I could argue, yes, he doesn't get those same looks without the pressure of Russell Westbrook putting on the basketball floor, skating around the way that he does, created a lot of open lanes for Kevin Durant, took a lot of pressure off of Kevin Durant. But what it also did is took a lot of shots from Kevin Durant. It made it so that when he was at his youngest, he wasn't able to show you exactly how efficient and dominant he could actually be, because a lot of those shots weren't coming his way. He wasn't playing with a think pass first point guard who's looking to pace the floor for Kevin Durant and get him the ball when he needs it. Like a player like that, if he would have been playing with a Luka Doncic to start his career, or LeBron James to start his career, or Magic Johnson to start his career, you do understand that Kevin Durant probably would be well on his way to the scoring title right now. He would be on fast track with Bron to race to see who would get Kareem's record. That's what I'm saying to you. It's like KD didn't necessarily be gifted the greatest path through this league. He started his career off with a super duper star next to him who just so happens to be somebody who is a one-man band. He dominates the whole thing and is inefficient in doing so. He was able to carve a Hall of Fame career out of that throughout the first 7 years of his career in a situation next to that player, and got that player to the finals. Or they got each other to the finals, They held their own. But you got to understand the disadvantages the man been at the whole time. You move on from that, he goes to Golden State. They play perfect ball. You see exactly what he brings to the table from a winning standpoint. He goes to that team, they play perfect basketball. You never seen nothing better than that, basically. He leaves that situation for a set of reasons that, whatever they were. Goes to the Nets, and the Kyrie situation takes place. That's that man's whole career. It's a whole thing. So when I listen to people challenging him, or when I listen to people saying he ain't this, or I look at a fan base like OKC who call him cupcake for getting the hell out of that situation, for which I don't think he could have won in, for which the organization definitely should not have traded James Harden, first and foremost. Second of all, they should not have kept Russell Westbrook over Kevin Durant under any circumstance. It should never have happened. Once there was any inclination whatsoever that Kevin Durant had any frustrations with playing with Russell Westbrook, OKC should have traded Russell Westbrook right away. Like I always say about tiers and pecking orders when it comes to these basketball gods, there's still levels to this, which is why I'm a Laker fan willing to trade Anthony Davis for Kevin Durant, because there's levels up there, way up there, still levels. And KD's higher than him, and KD's higher than Westbrook, and they should have been prioritized that way. Just like we should prioritize KD over AD, the Thunder should have prioritized KD over Westbrook. That is where everything went really wrong. If you really want to know the truth, KD should have never been forced to leave the Thunder, because that fit, when it was recognized it was a bad fit, that kid should have been out of there. Period. There should have never been a situation where KD even got frustrated. As soon as I see he's having trouble with Westbrook, I got to make a decision. Because these two kids don't fit, and I got to play them both. They extracted Harden, the guy who kept their offense together. The guy who was making sure KD got those shots. Got him up out of there. Kept the Westbrook kid. And the rest is history. KD had to leave in order to win, and we know that. Media slaughtered him for choosing the Warriors as a team to go to after getting beat by them in having a 3-1 deficit blown to them, and then of course going to that team who had also blown the 3-1 lead in that same series, or that same playoffs rather, which was completely ironic. The whole thing was just ironic, especially given how good those teams were that year. But nevertheless, he felt that was the best way for him to win. He was right. He went to Golden State, and we know what happened after that. And if he didn't go to Golden State, he wouldn't have beat Bron every year or whatever. He wouldn't have got them rings. Golden State wouldn't have beat LeBron without KD. They wouldn't have. He'd have came back and beat him again. They needed that dude. And the fact of the matter is, even though I was a little kind of frustrated with KD for leaving the Thunder because they had just picked up Victor Oladipo, the reality was they had just picked up Victor Oladipo. Russell Westbrook can't shoot. Victor Oladipo couldn't shoot. Those are two non-shooters who dominate the ball that they put together on top of KD when he was already frustrated with the Westbrook situation from a basketball standpoint. He had to get the hell out of there. They had spent their second max contract on another non-shooter. He had to get out of there. A lot of people don't remember that. And to a point, I didn't necessarily see it that way because my basketball IQ wasn't as up as it is now. But looking back on it, it was a terrible fit. It was a terrible fit. Excellent acquisition of talent for the time because Victor was right there. He was getting ready to be what we thought was going to be a star. For which he showed in Indiana he was, but that was a terrible fit. Basketball fit for KD. Offensively. Defensively would have been great. Offensively, no. No. They made bad transactions after blowing a 3-1 lead. And he got the hell out of there. He got the hell out of there. They kept the coach too long. That was another thing. I didn't think the coach was right for the situation. All of that. It was just not for him. He had to go. He went to the Warriors. They played good ball. He got ridiculed for it. And look, I get it. I remember what he said. Just like I never forgot why Kyrie didn't take the vaccine is because he wanted to stand up for people who had lost their, jobs in regards to the situation. I haven't forgotten why KD went to Golden State. It's because he wanted to play perfect basketball and wanted to see what perfect basketball looked like. Which is the same reason why I think he should go to the Lakers, because we actually want to see what him and LeBron James look like. But that's the point. It's like you got to find a perfect basketball fit because he had been in such an imperfect basketball fit for his entire career up until that point. So, of course, he wanted to get out from that pressurized, horrible fit to get to a perfect fit because that's what pressure does. It makes you want to hurry up and get to something exaggeratingly perfect as opposed to just getting to something that's just balanced. You see what I'm saying? It's like you lock me in a room for a whole year. I'm not going to just go outside. I want to catch a flight to Aruba. I want to go all over the world because I've been confined for so long. So that's kind of how I viewed that situation. It was like, not only do I want to get out of this bad fit, but I want to go to one that's never going to be bad again. And so that's what he did. That's what he did. He found the best possible fit. It just so happened to exist during this time where he was in his prime, which is also something that a lot of Pantheon greats don't get. The ability to find your perfect fit in the area you're in. When you're as great as KD, you got to search across time and space to find the best fit for you as the greatest player, right? Because it's not just about the area you're in. You're fighting against ghosts and unborn kids who are coming later who are going to try to, catch your record. So at this point, it's not about necessarily fighting against the field. You're fighting against history. So for him, it's like, wow, in my exact prime, there is a place in California with all that sunshine where they have the best shooters in the world and a facilitator who doesn't even play the point guard position. This is great. Me as a small forward, power forward can slip right in. Steph Curry's going to take pressure off me. Klay Thompson's going to take pressure off of me. And all I have to do is sit back and do my thing in rhythm. And we're going to win every game. And that was a perfect fit. And it was a good basketball decision by a great basketball player. And the pundits killed him for it. Why? Because they didn't understand the beauty of basketball. They're more so interested in the narratives of belittling someone and making them feel horrible for the sake of keeping my attention and yours as well. So instead of applauding KD for giving us something perfect, we slaughtered him for leaving an imperfect situation. So that situation in Golden State does what it does. Personalities. Time to move on. I think he made a mistake picking Brooklyn. But that was an opportunity for him to play with his boy, Kyrie. And Kyrie is a Nets fan. And that's why the Nets are relevant. It's the only reason why the Nets are relevant. Because Kyrie loved y'all. That's why support is so important in Brooklyn. Because at the end of the day, these are just little kids who root for teams. Who happen to be really, really good at what they did when they grew up. And some of them haven't even fully grown up. They're still kids when you get them. And you expect them to have grown-up decisions in their mind. You expect them to understand a game that you don't explain to them fully. And then when they make decisions in that environment that they're not schooled to master, and that those decisions go left, then those same people who ridicule them for making certain decisions get a chance to ridicule them for those too. And people wonder why KD has 8, 9, 10 burner accounts. You know you did this to this boy's mind, right? You know you did that to him. Fame is not good for the mental health of all people. It's really not. When you make certain type of personalities be in certain pressurized situations, they're not going to sit back and just chill. No, they're going to come out aggressive. And they're going to be getting at you, and you too. Why? Because all of the world has put so much pressure on me and been so unfair to me. And all I've ever wanted to do is play my sport, make my money, and do my thing. See, that's the confusion. I think a lot of times because people are talented and because they are able to be exploited by some great entity that does that, right? Because that's what it is. It's an exploitation of talent. Not in a derogatory way, but it is what it is. So they're blessed enough to be in this position. And because of it, they're supposed to have other aspects of their lives in order. Now they're supposed to not have no drug problems. Now they're not supposed to have no behavioral issues, mental health issues, not supposed to be present. None of these things are supposed to exist because they're good at basketball and because we all see them. So even though you or me might have different issues in our lives that make it so that we have idiosyncrasies or quirkiness or maybe bad decision making or whatever in our lives, they're supposed to be perfect. Not because they've been given some blessed wisdom. No. But because of cameras in their face when they do what it is that they do best. So that right there is a norm that isn't normal. We need to stop putting so much pressure on others to be greater than us when we're all human. And the pressure that we put on others to handle their business is not pressure we want to take on our own, in our own lives. Not to mention that in the presence of the business itself, you almost forget that there's an excellence that's being displayed here. If you remove the money and you just get every human being that wants to play basketball out in the street and put a camera on them, you're going to see so much bad basketball in this world. Okay? So much bad basketball. That's why those guys are so important. Because if you pull them off the street and you get them playing the game, it gets played at its highest level. As to where you get me down there, it's going to be bricks all day. I'm going to be turning the ball over. I can barely dribble. It's not a good look. You can go out there, put a Laker uniform on me, invest $100 million in me. Nobody's going to watch. Because I ain't no good. Those guys are good. And in the presence of the business, we tend to forget what it is that they're providing in this limited time that they're able to provide it. So we take them for granted. You look at these GMs with their ambition and the game that they're playing, the owners and the ambition and the game that they're playing, and they're moving these pieces around in places that don't fit, and they get them locked into these places. And when they get locked into these places, they obviously want to get out of these situations into better basketball fits and get ridiculed for that. They leave money on the table. Maybe they want to stay in a situation that isn't favorable. Maybe they don't want to go to the Lakers and just kind of want to stay in Washington or Portland. Guess what? Now you're ridiculing them for that. Why ain't you good enough to get that team over the hump? Why ain't you leave that place? You're only there for the money. Clearly, if you wanted to win, you would leave. But if I left, you call me Cupcake. If I left to go find a better basketball fit, you're going to say I'm joining somebody else's team and give that person all the credit for the work that I'm doing. But if I stay there, I'm a stupid loyalist. I'm someone who's only here for the money. I'm robbing the team of the opportunity to get better because I keep staying too long. Damned if I do. Definitely damned if I don't. That's why I give credit to the guys who can handle that, like LeBron James, who can spend his whole career dealing with this and still keep his eyes on the bottom line at all times. That's a special mental space to be in. That's a special type of brain to be able to handle that. Not everybody can. Some people ain't going to be able to do the right thing or say the right thing when they're under certain types of pressure. Some people ain't going to be able to make the right decision when they're under certain types of pressures. It just is what it is. That's why the elite are the elite. That's why LeBron is LeBron, because he can do all of that and more. Tears, etc. Point is, I don't think KD is properly placed where he deserves to be. And I'm pretty sure if I were to study more guys in the history of the sport, I would find more instances where this is the case. Where guys just had a bad path, reacted to that path poorly, whether it be on the court or off, and the rest is history. As to where other guys got in good situations with good established coaches, great defined roles, good health, and they were able to accomplish more with that good fortune in the league with the limited time that they were able to play. All these guys get anywhere from 5 to 15 years, 20 years, whatever it's going to be. But within those 20 years, how many of those years do they control? And when they control those years, what's going on around them to where maybe it's not as good as they hoped it would be? It's a lot of things got to fall into place for basketball players to be able to win. Even though it's understood that it's a 5-man team, 15-man roster, blah, blah, blah. No, because it's 5 men. You remove one, you change the whole roster. You remove 2, you might just decimate the team, depending on the situation, the pieces you move. So, not to mention the cap makes it so that if you want to team up with a really, really good player, play really, really good basketball, if they didn't draft the guys that you're playing with, and they ain't willing to, their owner isn't willing to spend money, that path you're on, yeah, that's going to fall flat. They're going to start trading players away. Look at what Devin Booker's going through. He went to the finals 2 years ago. Now his team, who knows what his team going to look like. His big man gotta leave because they don't want to pay him. They don't have the money to pay him. Maybe they're shopping some of his key role players so they can bring in a Pantheon great maybe for a couple years. Devin Booker's path, he ain't never left Phoenix Suns. He's been on the best team in the league. He's been on the worst team in the league. Never left. You know? I mean, if he were to leave his situation and join the Golden State Warriors 3 years ago, y'all would have said what? What if he decided to do that now? What are you going to say? You know, it's like that path, it don't come with much criticism at this point. But let's say he gets upset. Let's say they win and then he gets upset and wants to leave. Look, Giannis is lucky in the sense that he was able to be drafted into a situation that really was for him. They not only had the situation for him, but they believed in him in such a way that nobody else did, and they took him under their wing and they raised him basically. They developed him, gave him the game, taught him all they needed to know, and he didn't want to leave. He don't care if the situation's better over there or worse. I'm cool. I'm where I need to be. That's not going to happen very often for the player or the organization. It's not how this works. Now, if KD would have been drafted to his favorite team and the situation was great and the path was great, do you know where he would be ranked right now? That's the point. It's like that is the point. Let KD to have been drafted at the Spurs. Let's just say he was drafted at the Spurs. Different situation. Now, granted, Kawhi would probably have something to say about that, but you get the point. Kawhi still has a ring because of it. May not have went great for him there, but that's withstanding the issue. The point is, it's about the path. If you get into an established situation with established coaching, you happen to be a great player, boom, you're going with the win. Look at Michael Jordan. There's no one better than Michael Jordan's situation. Now that we understand what happened with Scottie Pippen and why that team was able to be as loaded as it was, why they had Scottie Pippen and all these other talented players around Michael Jordan to keep him looking great. If you would have put Michael Jordan in the situation that you put Kevin Durant was in when the Boston Celtics team, you do know we would have seen Michael Jordan in a way we never seen him before. You do know that, right? There's a lot of people that don't believe that. But I assure you, there are fits that if you would have threw Michael Jordan's piece into those fits, he would have lost. And you would have seen him differently. Because the fit would have been terrible and he wouldn't have been able to overcome it. Even in his prime. This is real. You know, a lot of people don't want to hear that because they think he's someone who could overcome all basketball odds, all basketball situations. And there's no way to prove he couldn't. But I'm telling you, you put him on the floor with the wrong players, he ain't winning nothing. Bulls didn't do that to him, and that's why he has 6 rings. It would have been great to see KD be inherited into a situation with Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen next to him, and Dennis Rodman on the way, Steve Kerr, of whom rings seem to be attracted to this man. Like, these are the type of situations that our guy K was not afforded at all. He didn't get that. So I weigh that against the behavior, the frustration, the burner accounts. I weigh that. Because he's one of the only guys one of the only guys who has people who are historically considered greater than him, who are not better than him, critiquing moves that they probably weren't forced to make through their path, through the league. So I wanted to sit here and give KD some bail. Hopefully he's a future Laker. That'll make this video even better. That'll make this a better timepiece. But honestly, it doesn't even matter if the man ends up on my team or not. Heck, he might end up on his favorite team, the Raptors. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, me personally, I just want to see KD in a situation where some of these narratives can just be disarmed. Just disarm a lot of these narratives. What I want to see this man do in the final years of his career. Be in a situation where they can't say nothing. That's what I wish for him. And Kai. But in this situation, KD, because I think KD has done his part. Because I ain't forgot how KD simply sent a little text message while my Laker guy, Bron, did the decision. Helped the Boys and Girls Club situation out by making sure the decision was done there, which I never forgot. That was big. But nevertheless, that was a big spectacle. You know, it was a bad decision for a lot of people in their minds. The way that he did it, I think a lot of people didn't like it, etc. KD, that same year, that same week, nothing like that. Send a little text message. I'm going back to OKC. We good. Like, that was a type of thing. Like, I never forgot that. Since the cupcake stuff and all that, I never forgot that. Never forgot that. You know what I mean? It's like when you're humble for a long time, nobody respects it. They don't even acknowledge it. It gets to a point where, all right, I do something for myself and I get killed for it. Finger to everybody. I get that. That's how I feel like KD. That's what I take from KD. Because I was humble. Yeah, I respect that. So, KD not nice. I get it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're better than these dudes, because Hakeem exists. Wilt exists. Jerry West exists. Fact of the matter is, they were better than dudes. They didn't win enough. Path, no path. Yes, no, maybe so. None of that matters. They didn't win enough. So KD's gonna have to win more. That's it. That's gonna shut everybody up, including me. Gotta win more. And he still has time to do it. Chuck ain't got no more time. He can't get out there and show us, yeah, I was that dude, still could be if my body would do it. He can't go out there and prove to us he's a champ. Iverson can't go out there and prove to us a champ. I know those guys are champions. I know those are bus drivers. I know teams, you know, they would have had trouble with them. If they would have had better fits, if they would have had better teams, teams would have had trouble with those players. They'd have won many championships depending on the fit. I'm telling you. We all know that. Reggie Miller would be a champion if he were in a different situation. Better fit. You know that. But I don't think anybody really talks about that or cares about that, because it's not about anything other than winning. Whether you can control it or not, nobody cares. Just win. So that's what I would tell KD. That's what I'd tell him. Maybe they weren't in the gym with you, shooting in the gym. Maybe they know about how you get down. Maybe they care. Maybe they don't. But I'll tell you this. You want to shut them up? Win. BDL 44. Thank you all for watching.